Chapter 8. A different kind of movie. Now that the Muppets were superstars, Jim was super busy. In the 1980s, he often had to travel. It was exciting. He rode a camel in Egypt. He went hot air ballooning in France. Jim still tried to find time to be with his family. By now, Lisa and Cheryl had graduated from college. Brian, John, and Heather were teenagers. His kids admired him, liked hanging out with him, and often worked with him. Jim thought they had good, funny ideas. He listened to their advice and trusted them. They played tennis, went snow skiing, and sailed together. They also enjoyed simple things like going on walks and flying kites. Jim was a modest, private person. He enjoyed just sitting alone in a garden thinking. He was rich. He had several homes and fancy cars, including a Kermit green Lotus. Every year he had a lavish costume party to thank his employees. He always wore a tuxedo and a super fancy mask. But fame and money were never the most important things to Jim. He created the Jim Henson Foundation to get people interested in puppetry. He made commercials about recycling and helping the environment. Times were changing. As always, Jim was ready to push the limits of what puppets could do. He was interested in animatronics. This was what a new way of moving puppets using computers and radio controls. He helped the creators of Star Wars to create the Yoda puppet. Frank Oz did Yoda's voice. Jim used animatronics in The Dark Crystal. It was his first fantasy movie. He was so excited about the animatronics that he decided not to use any real people in the movie. Instead, he would use only puppets. His daughter Cheryl helped him with the plot. In the story, the evil Skeksis have taken control of the planet Thra. Gentle creatures called mystics are now under their thumb. To save the planet, two fairy-like gelflings join forces. A famous fantasy illustrator named Brian Froud came up with the look of the characters in The Dark Crystal. The puppets were full-figured. That means they had bodies with arms and legs. They were radio-controlled or hand-operated by puppeteers. For the larger characters, human actors wore costumes. It was exhausting work. Some costumes were so heavy that the actors had to be hung up on the wall. Costumes and all for short rest breaks. A lot of space was needed to create all the sets and characters. So Jim brought an old post office building across the street from his house in London. It had high ceilings and big open spaces. It became known as the Creature Shop. Many people went to see The Dark Crystal when it was released in 1982. Jim had really enjoyed making it. He was proud that he'd tried something new, but some audiences were confused. Where were the Muppets? They weren't sure if it was for grown-ups or kids. The Dark Crystal was nowhere near as popular as Steven Spielberg's E.T., the Extraterrestrial, which came out the same year. Jim was disappointed, but he knew he'd done good work. Besides, he was already on to the next new project. It's the end of chapter 8.